It's time for episode 257 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center and Skymint Cannabis. Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center, over 1,000 members now at that beautiful facility. All kinds of workout equipment, fitness classes, a therapy pool, sauna, steam rooms. Again, keep the towels on, fellas. Learn more about going online at memorialhealthcare.org and also Skymint Cannabis. Skymint Cannabis, farm to stash, grown right here in Michigan, over 15 locations in the state. Check out the Skymint Reserve. If you're over 21, go online at skymint.com, check out all the latest deals, and sign up for the rewards program. New customers can still use that coupon code 3.20 at the Corona store for 20% off Skymint products. We also want to thank our other great local partners, AZEE Printing Solutions, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Crow Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Well, let's do what we always do, fellas. Let's catch up.
All right. Well, as you guys know, the airport is my least favorite place in the entire world to be. Second behind that is the grocery store. So this happened right before this podcast, man. They're like clockwork. Every week when I don't have anything to talk about and catch up, something happens right before we record this show. So I'm walking into Meijer, literally just grabbing eggs. So I'm making a beeline right to the eggs. I just got out of work, kind of beat for the day, flipping, just ready to get home and relax for a little bit before we record this podcast. So I'm kind of speed walking toward the eggs. You know, walk right in. I literally jogged into Meijer. That's how much of a rush I was kind of in. Jogged into Meijer, walked past the fresh vegetables, walked past the, deli meats on your right as you're heading toward the eggs, the Lunchables, the yogurt. As I'm walking up, there is this lady in a motorized cart right at the end of the yogurt, which the eggs are right next to the yogurt in the glass containers. The yogurt is in some case, right next to it. So as I'm walking down this aisle, I see this lady in the motorized cart and probably her daughter that's 30 years old. The daughter is standing to the right of the eggs that I wanted, which was the 2 dozen egg packaging. She was standing in front of the dozen egg packaging. I thought nothing of it. She was kind of standing there, looking at her phone, looking back at her mom, looking back at the eggs, not moving. So I just think nothing of it. I walk right by, open up the door, grab the eggs out, start walking away. As I'm walking away, she mumbles something under her breath, something like, "Oh, not that I'm not standing here or anything." As I'm walking away, I pondered it for a solid 2 seconds in my brain. I should just let this go. I normally do let that type of stuff go, but then I kind of glanced at her and she was death staring me. And when I saw her death staring me, that's when it really just kind of set me off. And I never do this, man. To be honest, the only other time I did it is, and I'll follow it up with this, was to a homeless guy in Arizona. I'll talk about that in a second. Oh, boy. So she says that, and I just couldn't resist. So I turned to her and I'm like, "What exactly were you pondering? Standing there, it's eggs. It's not rocket science. Grab them and go. This is not your Meijer." And this is the funniest part. I don't know. It was like I was speaking poetry out of my mouth. Because when I was working at Meijer, they give you a Fred Meyer autobiography book that I read because I was so damn bored there. So I knew that he was the one that owned Meijer. So I said, "You aren't Fred Meyer. You do not own this place. This isn't your world, and we're just living in it." I then just literally beeline walk right away, start walking. She starts talking, can't form her sentence. By the time I get out of earshot, she said something. I couldn't even hear it. And I tell you what, man. I felt so empowered walking away from that.
Chest was all puffed out when you were walking away.
I know why ladies like her love to bitch at the cashiers, love to bitch at the waiters, love to bitch at people like me, because it was an all-time rush, man. I feel great coming into this podcast, and I'm so glad that I spoke my mind.
Yay!
There are times, turn the other cheek. There's all those cliches you hear about. There's no reason sometimes to get in those confrontations. But yeah, like you said, you were spitting bars, as the kids say, when this lady kind of confronted you. Sometimes it is worth speaking up a little bit, because maybe people might be able to say maybe you took it a little far, saying you're not Fred Meyer. That's actually pretty funny.
That's a good line.
But a simple what did you expect me to do? Wait for you to stare at your phone for 20 minutes?
And sorry to cut you off, Matt, but when I say she was not even in the way, she didn't have to move. She was literally standing to the side in front of the other door, walk right by her, open up the door, grab the eggs out, turned around and was walking past her mom in the motorized cart, and she opened up her mouth.
Yeah.
It was like, I didn't even think twice about it. You know how sometimes you'll, like, somebody be doing that, you kind of wait. Didn't even think twice to wait. Like, there was nothing to wait for. She was just standing there.
Yeah. I think that I'd be curious. We could probably do, let's throw out Prep Spotlight, Sports Potpourri, and Tedertainment. Let's do a whole podcast on this. Ted, you probably agree. I think social media has given people this platform that makes them feel like they can just like treat people like this. Jared, you just opened the door and grabbed your eggs. What made her think that she should like say that comment to you? All you did, you opened, you didn't like push her aside. You didn't like, box out her mom and like go steal eggs. It was the last carton ever on planet Earth, and you snagged them. Like, what makes her think that she could say that? It makes me think about when like the green, you're at a stoplight and the light turns green, and immediately they're on their horn.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? Just this morning, I know you got a little more, Jared. Just this morning, a similar thing happened. I'm coming out of our neighborhood. We pull onto a very, very busy street, especially in the morning. So like if you get a window that you can pull out, you kind of want to get it. Well, this morning I'm taking the kids to school and stuff. There was a window, and like my son like dropped his milk, and my daughter was like saying something about her shoe. So I was a little distracted, and I'm like looking down, and by the time I look up, I was like, damn, I missed that window. And then here comes the 70 cars that I have to wait for. Sure enough, someone is behind me, blaring on their horn, giving me the like hands, like, what are you doing? I just like calmly wave, and I'm like, I apologize. I have 2 children in here that are like melting down. Right? They weren't melting down, but it's just like, what are you so mad about? What are people are just so mad all the time. It's like, I know sometimes you have a rough day, everyone's going through some stuff. So, you try and take that into consideration, but it just seems like people are so on edge and mad all the time. I don't know.
I think there's a little bit to it in social media. I mean, obviously the times have really changed with social media and people's their guts. Let's put it that way.
That's what I mean.
How they can act on social media. There's nothing that can happen. But I also think, and we've talked about it before, the whole political thing in the last few years, and then on top of that, we get hit with COVID, and 3 years of this crap. There is an angry society out there right now. And I had a similar experience. I had an experience where I was like wrong, but I went to the hospital, right? I'll talk more about our grandbaby. We went to the hospital, you go to the parking ramp, and I came out, and you got to go through one of those gates where the gate raises up, right? Yep. So I put the credit card in, and it wasn't cooperating correctly. And all of a sudden, this guy I'm looking at the little thing to my left with the window down. All of a sudden, this guy just lays on the horn and says, "The gate's up, idiot." Okay, all right, sorry, I'm bad. I'm an old driver. What can I tell you? Don't need to be real angry. So I took the bullet on that one. But yeah, man, people are just pissed.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, man. And a lot of people are listening to this probably thinking I'm the idiot for responding and escalating the situation, but I couldn't take it. I couldn't take another second of it. And
it's kind of to Ted's point. I don't know if it's social media, whatever.
Right.
People have gotten to the point where they think they can make the comments like she did to you and not get any retaliation or not get anything back. I think it's given people like this sense of like security. I mean, and we see videos all the time that it goes much farther. Jared, all you did was, spout back at her. A lot of times you see videos that people have guns on them, or they get violent. So it's like, people feel like they can just make these stupid comments. Like, she could have grumbled under her breath, and then after you walked away, maybe said something to her mom, like, what the hell was that kid doing? If she was that mad, why'd she have to say something to you? Like,
it's like, I really listen.
The Fred Meyer line, the Fred Meyer line's a good
I
one.
would have said I was sorry if I did nothing wrong in that. Like, it was so preposterous that it just snapped something in my brain that hasn't been snapped in a long time. And as I said, I don't know if it's because the post, like Aaron Rodgers, darkness retreat is what's made me this way. But when I was walking to the gym my second to last day in Arizona by myself, my brother was coming back from Denver for a work trip. I was walking there at 7 a.m. This homeless guy is laying on the bench. As soon as I'm walking by, of course, he like sprouts right up and he's awake. hey, you got any change? Genuinely, I look in my phone. I have no change. Who carries around cash or anything? I said, oh, sorry, man, I don't. I like open up my wallet, show him. Oh, yeah, you do. I know you do. What's in your backpack? So then and then this is another time where it snapped. And I said, no, I don't. And you know what? I'm glad I don't now. And I just kept walking right. And the guy had nothing to say, man. That also happened. So I don't know. It's just something. I guess that's what I took away from the darkness retreat, man. I'm tired of taking some of this bullshit that I don't need to anymore, man.
That's fair, and the whole homeless thing, that's kind of a tough thing. You want to help them out. You want to help them out because they might be, down on their luck, but then at the same time, when he's giving you a guilt trip, when you're honestly saying like, sorry, man, I don't have any change, then it makes you kind of like, what do you want me to do?
Just the way he said it, it was so like evil and snarky. Like I just couldn't stand it. So yeah, well, a little bit of a depressing catch up, but that's where my life has been the last couple of weeks.
Well, not only that, he was eyeballing your backpack too, man. Right. That would have made me nervous right then and there. Oh, what's going on?
I have had a backpack stolen before with $500 cash in it. So
you got to be weary of basically everything nowadays. Yeah. I mean, not to be like cynical, but I always say sometimes like I don't put anything past anyone.
Absolutely.
You need to be aware of everything, but it's you're having some life. I feel like in your young age. I mean, you're growing up or whatever, but you're having some good life lessons out there.
Life lessons. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. And he's also, working in Detroit. So you're going to be exposed to a heck of a lot of things. You have already, I'm sure. Yeah. I've already heard some of those stories that just, I'm sure it makes your mother very nervous. That's all I'll say on that.
It's overblown, man. It's no different than living anywhere else. I haven't noticed any difference.
Fair enough.
What I'm hearing too is, so let's see, one run-in was post-workout. So you were probably tired and pretty hungry.
Right.
And the one tonight was you were trying to speed home with some eggs. You were probably going to make yourself a nice omelet for dinner.
Some protein.
So I think hunger, does hunger come into play when you're going to snap?
It might, man. That's not a bad hypothesis. It's just you never know when it's going to snap. Two totally different situations, two totally different people, two totally different scenarios. I don't know. I wish I knew. If I knew, I'd be like the Hulk. I'd be able to, like the Hulk, I'd be able to restrain it somehow. But I guess I am like the Hulk, where you don't know what's going to spark it, man, and it just sets you off, and you don't know what to do.
Well, both you guys still have a lot of testosterone flowing through those veins, man. Look at me. I'm Mr. Mellow now.
Well, no, but you have the biggest. Remember the whole South 401 story from what was that? Last year, where you basically were almost in a fist fight in a parking lot. I mean, you can't forget that.
Well, I was going to bring it up because we've told the story already, but that was a famous one, man. Short story, at a restaurant with my 90-year-old dad, and we come out of the restaurant. I get him in the car, handicap thing, and I just barely ding the car next to me, and I thought, shoot, and I look over there, and the guy's flipping me off, and then he's calling me an a-hole, and then he was relentless, and I was going to let it go, but then I just couldn't. And I just went off on him. And I agree with you, Jared. When you have those episodes where that testosterone does get flowing, you do feel pretty good. I mean, that was a pretty interesting car ride home with my dad. He said, he goes, I guess you told him.
Yeah.
It was a bonding moment between dad and son. What can I tell you? And speaking of bonding moments, guys, I was in DC last week. I recorded out there, and it was granddaughter number 4, but we welcomed Bailey Joe Herman to the world March 1st, 1:50 a.m., 6 pounds, 3 ounces, 20 inches. And, grandfathers obviously are prejudiced, but she's a beauty, and she's a mellow baby compared to her older sister Harper when she came out. So it's been really good. It was a nice visit. My wife was out there for a little over 2 weeks, and I was out there for a week, and, we helped them get settled in, and it was great. It's just an awesome experience, can't wait to see little Bailey again.
Yeah, it's crazy. And good to hear that everything went smooth and, everyone's doing well. And it just reminds me, it's crazy how fast that goes. I mean, Ted, you definitely remember.
Oh, yeah.
Like my daughter's 7, son is already over 1. Like those newborn, the very fresh newborn stages, they go by so fast. I mean, when you're in it, it feels like sometimes this is going to last forever, but next thing you know, they're 1, 2, 7, 8, 20 years old. And
yeah, and
crazy.
it goes by fast because, you know, when they're newborns, basically all they do is sleep, pee, poop, eat. And that's it.
Yep.
That's all they do, you know, and
Yep.
for, I don't know, what is it, 3 months, 4 months before they actually start
Yeah.
smiling and laughing and stuff like that, where you get a little reaction out of them.
Yep.
But
Do you
I
feel like
always
a
say,
changed man?
what's that?
Do you feel like a changed man?
Oh, no, not really.
you've been through
Yeah.
the granddad thing
I'm a
before.
seasoned man. And what we did on our drive home, you know, we decided to stop see the other two granddaughters in Royal Oak, just surprise them. You know, here's my wife saying, "Well, we better call them. You know, like we don't like getting dropped in on." I said, "No, we're just gonna pop in." You know, so we showed up on the front porch. I knocked on the window, and it was no problem visiting them. But the girls were just going crazy. They were happy to see Grandma and Grandpa with a little surprise visit. It was
I
fun.
was going to say those surprise visits, it could go one of two ways. Either you're going to catch it in a bad moment, or you're going to just cause a whole
Yeah,
crazy moment going on or
Mm.
whatever. But no, that's fun. The grandparent thing is so fun. It is cool.
it is.
You know, seeing your parents as grandparents. I'm sure your kids, you know, enjoy seeing you as a
Yep,
grandpa. You know, it's kind of fun to see. And
absolutely. I'll tell you
Jared, I'm
what,
sure
though.
your mom and dad are probably waiting for that, right, Jared?
It's gonna be a while, I think, man. There's nothing coming anytime soon. I don't think. At least I know for sure on my end that's the case. So
Yeah. Also, before we wrap up this part, guys, I just want to mention we haven't really officially talked about it, but you know, you know, I'm semi-retired from my full-time job, and I'm kind of looking the same way in the broadcasting business and radio. I'm going to step back from the every single Friday commitment throughout the school year. I'm going to pick and choose my games. I'm going to still be sports director at Z92.5. I'll be in charge of working the crews, making sure that they're lined up to go to the games. And I'm going to pick and choose periodically a game here and there. I'm going to continue doing the Owosso Corunna game. I'll be a third mic on that. And as long as Corunna keeps playing Owosso in football, I'll probably always be a part of that as long as I'm around. But the day-to-day stuff, you know, we're going to call it a career. And it's been a lot of fun. I think there's going to be an article in the Argus Press about it that should turn out pretty good. Murphy's going to write it, Jerome Murphy.
Nice.
So he'll
Turf
do a
the
good
Murph.
job with it. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
So-
that's cool. So I know you've been, you know, contemplating this for
Yeah.
a while. So it's nice to, I guess, ease out of it, because I know you still love doing it. You still love
love
being
it.
a part of the game, being in the gyms, on the
Yep.
football field. So yeah, it's nice that you can still, like, yeah, Owosso Corunna, maybe a Corunna playoff game, you know, some other
Right.
big games like that, you can still be
Yep.
involved. But
And, you know, we got some other things we're thinking about doing, you know, as a sideline as well. And I probably would continue doing it if I was working for a big budget radio station where I could just show up at the football field, show up at the gym, somebody else lug all the equipment and do all
Right.
that. But that's all part of small market radio. And those are the things that just drive you crazy, because when you go on a road trip and you have to you have to stop at the radio station, go to the game. After the game, you got to bring the equipment back to the radio station,
Right.
you know, and that adds a lot of extra time and effort, you know, and I'm just tired of that.
yep.
I'm surprised on the football. I figured you might be like George Blaha-esque, where you know you'll ride off in the sunset, do it as long as you kind of can.
Yeah. I thought about it, Jared, but you know, when on Friday nights, especially with the grandkids, you know, we have ones in Detroit, that's an hour and a half drive, and then the two out in DC. I mean, if I wanted to just take off on a Thursday and make a long weekend of it, you know, because they're not retired. I mean, I can go any damn time, but
Right.
I have to go around their schedules too. So I just thought, you know, for my family and the enjoyment I get out of it, and while I can continue in good health, I think now's the time. So
Yeah.
you just figure that stuff out.
How many years did you tally up? How many games? How many years?
Jerome asked me that. I think probably pretty close to 1,500 games and another close to 1,000 sports forums, you know, and other remote stuff. So a lot of airtime.
Yeah.
And I will
Wow.
continue to do this as long as you guys will have me here.
Well, yeah, we want to keep you on the podcast because we have to keep the older generation when we talk about things like MLB rule changes, and when we
Oh,
want
yeah.
to talk about Pistol Pete Maravich and his scoring record. We need your point of view, right? So
Absolutely. Well, Maybe your dad can fill in for me, but we'll talk about a few of those things here coming up a little later in the program. But you got anything especially you want to catch up on at all, Matt, before we move on to the prep spotlight?
Not necessarily catch up. I mean, we're just super busy at work right now.
Yeah.
I mean, just Jared, I'm sure you are too, but with March Madness and everything, it's been crazy. I'm going to Greensboro Thursday for the ACC men's basketball tournament.
Nice.
So I had the opportunity to go up there and work it up there. So it worked out with my wife's schedule and everything. Yeah. So that'll be a cool experience to go up to Greensboro and be at the site for the tournament.
Yeah, actually get to see a team that could probably win a national championship, unlike the Big Ten. So
yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, even though UNC is a little down, so people around here are pretty upset about that. But yeah, that'll be fun. Otherwise, just cranking away March Madness, man.
Absolutely. Who's the talent working that tournament?
There's a lot, but Jay Billis will be there.
Okay.
I'm not sure who's doing play-by-play. I know Dan Schulman has been, good. So I'm sure it's Dan Schulman and Jay Billis are the main ones.
Yeah. Well, it should be a lot of fun, man. Looking forward to it. Definitely March Madness is here, and it's going to be a blast. Speaking of March Madness, in high school, they have a little of that going on, too, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our prep spotlight right after this.
Yeah, I mean, I got one last question, Ted, before we get into our actual prep spotlight here. What was it, the MLB, making these, rule changes? Was it kind of at that point where you realized the game is kind of passing you by and you had to hang up the cleats and hang up the microphone? Or what was the breaking point, man?
Just a dagger to my heart. You just, there used to be a time, we're talking about anger and anger issues out there. There used to be a time when you respected your elders, you didn't just dog on them completely, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I can take it.
You had a great career. You had a great career. I was wondering what the breaking point was. And it's just funny that it aligned right with this major rule change that really broke your brain last week. So
that may have been something to do with it, Jared. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a not, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit too.
It was that fourth grandkid coming. Yeah. And you have been taking a few games off. I know Joe and Casey have been calling some games, and are you feeling like this is actually kind of nice?
It really kind of was. I mean, I'm going to still, there's no question I'm going to miss the big games, like overtime games and buzzer beater shots in basketball and classic football games. There's no doubt about that. But, after 38 years, I think I've done my time. That's the way I look at it.
Are you hoping to ride this Lanesburg team one last time, like out in the sunset to the Breslin Center, or what's the thought heading into your last
season? 100%. Now that who knows what's going to happen if they end up facing Ovid Elsie in the district championship game. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Ovid Elsie. As we'll just slide right into the prep spotlight brought to you by Capital Sports Fieldhouse. We are our week this week is in the New Lothrop Gym, and Langsburg #1 seed, Ovid Elsie #2 seed. And if Langsburg does get by Ovid Elsie in the championship game, let's just say if that is what it ends up being, hell yes, we'll ride the Langsburg bandwagon 100%. It'd be awesome to finish this thing out at the Breslin Center, either in the semis or the finals. That'd be completely fitting. Come on, Dan, get that team cranking.
Yeah, exactly. I know our friend Goose Poop, who we had on the podcast, who does all the projections and the predictions for all the games. His models, his computer models have them picked to be in the Final Four. So if Goose Poop's projections play out, you will be at the Breslin calling a Lanesburg game. So that Lanesburg Ovid Elsie game, though, if it plays out that they play each other, that'll be a good one.
Yeah. I mean, Ovid Elsie's always so well coached, as we know. They're going to play hard. They're not going to be scared of Lanesburg. That's for sure. They played him before. You give Latz a game film, probably learn a few things. They're going to be well prepared. It's going to be a tough game. If they get through that, whoever does, obviously Lanesburg's probably the favorite in that game. They have a great route to the Breslin Center. I mean, like you said, Matt, Goose Poop's projection. I mean, they go north. They don't face Beecher. They don't face Detroit Loyola. They don't face Traverse City St. Francis. I mean, This is the year. If there is a year to have a team from Shiawassee County, this is the team, and this is the year. I mean, we actually got the chance to go and talk to Lanesburg on Sunday before they headed to New Lothrop for their district practice. And I was really impressed with them. I mean, my biggest takeaway from talking to them was, one, Eli Woodruff, a very impressive young man. He's got, he's got some swag to him, and he's confident guy. He speaks very well on camera. but they're confident every time, you ask them, did you expect to make a run to the Breslin? Is this what you guys expected? Undefeated regular season. They were all said, yeah, this is what we expected. And a lot of times you can kind of see through that. They were genuine, man. And that makes me feel good about a team like Lanesburg, because when they do play those big games, the quarterfinals against the big dogs, Owosso on Friday night, they're not going to be stage fright. Ted, you've seen it so many times in those games with teams from our county over the years, where when the big dog comes and they end up losing by 40, and it just looks like they're terrified, like they didn't even want to step off the bus. I don't expect that from them. And I mean, Class C is going to be a blast. Traverse City St. Francis, like I mentioned, almost beat Cass Tech, who was the #1 team for almost the entire season. You got Detroit Loyola, who's the 8th best team in the state, according to Goose Pope. And then you have Flint Beecher, coached by Marquise Gray. I mean, it's probably going to be the most fun division of all of them. Yeah. And hopefully, Ted, you got a front row seat at it.
Hope so. I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to it. I just thought crossed my mind. You talk about some of these matchups and teams sometimes get scared. But I remember last year when Freeland, took on Flint Hamady, and Hamady plays that style. And the Freeland kids, they weren't intimidated at all, and they took it to them. That was a big win.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same vibe I got from Lanesburg. I mean, we'll see. You never know until you're faced with that situation. But from what I saw, just talking to them, that was my biggest takeaway. Is these guys, they are confident, and that's a big deal in high school sports and any sports really.
When's this feature going to run? During the playoffs, the finals, or?
Yeah, ideally it's during, maybe if they make it to the championship game, ideally it'd be during their game, but TBD.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool that you guys get out there this far in advance and pre-plot these kind of stories.
I mean, you take some swings. I mean, you never know what you mean. You take a look at the bracket. Looks like Lanesburg's, probably the favorite to make it there. You just got to kind of take your chances. I mean, even a team like a Cass Tech, who's #1, I mean, they play MLK tomorrow night, and that's a 50-50 game. So there's just no real way, unless it's like a Williamston, which we did a story on last year, where you just know they're going to make it there because they have 3 Division I players. It's very tough to do.
Question for you, inside baseball, as we like to call it. I mean, is this a story you pitched?
Yeah, because I mean, I was familiar with the story, obviously. So yeah, I mean, hopefully they make me look smart.
I mean, they very good chance, as you've laid out. They have a very good chance. You still got to play the games, though. And like we said, Owodelse's not going to lay down. Again, if it plays out that they play in the district championship,
Latz is probably taking this audio right now and saying, "Listen to this, guys." Right?
Yeah,
giving them bulletin board material. But those are 2 very good teams, and I know we haven't talked much about Corona because I know they've got a tough district, but kind of the same thing that you're talking about. I mean, I know Hamady is in their district, and obviously they're probably the favorite.
Yeah,
you don't play scared, and if you play your best game and maybe Hamady misses some shots, gets in foul trouble or something, you'll have a chance. So
it's going to be interesting to see Corona style against Hamady if they get there. They got to get by Chesaning first.
Yep.
And that's no gimme. Chesaning's pretty good. I know, Jared, you sent me a few statistics, but I watched them play a couple times. They're not bad. And if Corona can get to that championship game against Hamady in that small gym, who knows?
I mean,
it could go one of 2 ways.
I just worry. I mean, we saw it. I mean, Ted, you remembered the Freeland versus Flint Hamady game last year where Freeland kind of took the air out of the ball. They shot the lights out.
They did.
Hamady started pressing in the second half, and it was a totally different game. They nearly mounted a insurmountable comeback of 25 points to win that game. So I worry about speeding them up, which Corona loves to do. I really, really worry about it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, who knows? Anything can happen, like you said. But
it's a fun time of year for sure. And we've got a couple of district semifinals coming up Wednesday night. We're recording this Tuesday, and of course, we got that district championship game Friday night from the new Lothrop gym. Also in tournament action in girls basketball, district finals took place last Friday. Owosso picked up a district championship, 34-29. That ended a 22-year drought for the Trojans in district championship action. Freshman Danica Dwyer had 11 to lead Owosso in that one. That's good to see, after a couple of decades to finally pick up a district. And they have a fun team, and they've got a lot of returners coming back too. So they got a nice little program there at Owosso for the ladies. Also, speaking of the ladies, New Lothrop down Millington 43-41. The Hornets won on Marissa Rombach's buzzer beater. So that was exciting. I saw that film on Twitter. That was pretty cool. And Owodelse, they beat Pewamo Westphalia 42-36. Ava Bates 21. OE won just tonight in their regional opener. I saw against Grass Lake. So congratulations to them. I saw Sam Ali, our former guest on the show, had retweeted the bus ride out of town, with the fire engines leading them through Ovid. Sparse crowd on the streets, but still a great thrill for the girls.
That's always a cool thing for small towns. I mean, I don't know, maybe other towns do it too, but the small town thing where you get the police escort in. And
I remember we finished a 8-1 regular season in football, just like kind of a pointless win against Chesaning. And for whatever reason, we had like a fire truck escort in through town. And I remember like everybody's like, why the hell are we doing this? Like you felt silly doing it. So at least they actually have something to celebrate, unlike us. So
yeah. Did you ever have anything like that, Matt, in that semifinal run to the Breslin?
Well, we had it in football too after we went 9-0. So our 9-0 made a little more sense than Jared's 8-1. But yeah, we were on our way back from Fowlerville and we caught wind that there was going to be a police escort when we were coming down State Road. We saw it happening. So that was pretty cool. Downtown Corona, it was packed. I mean,
that's awesome.
Seems like, maybe my memory is a little blurry, but there were a few hundred people there, cheering us on when we were coming in. And then, basketball, I feel like we had it a few times after the regional championship on the way to the Breslin. I think we had 2 or 3 police escorts during that season. So definitely cool memories.
In that semifinal, Jared, your brother Johnny asked me to do a fake play-by-play of them against Saginaw. And I did that for Matt's team. I don't know if you remember that, Matt, but it was played at the Pep Assembly. So I put one together for Freeland in their game against Saginaw Wednesday night. That's harder than you would think. I mean, that's a lot harder than doing an actual game, man. I think I did about 8 to 10 takes trying to get it right. It's still listening to it. I thought it's okay. But the crowd noise that Matt put on it made it sound tolerable.
I was gonna say I didn't get to hear this, man. I mean, we don't have to pump this into the podcast. I don't. That's kind of classic.
It is. You can tell.
Matt's team. That was great. I do remember the one you did for Matt's team. That was classic, man.
Yeah, this wasn't quite as classic, I don't think.
It was good, but you could tell. I mean, trying to fake the energy,
I know.
It's kind of tough to do. And,
it is.
You probably wrote up like the scenario.
Just little bullet points is what I did. Yeah.
A missed layup and then a kick out for 3 for the win. No, that Pep Assembly, not to get too much into this. That was a really cool thing too.
Right.
It was the whole second half of school. It was like a 2-hour Pep Assembly that they opened up to the whole community. And that whole gym was full. We had the fake play-by-play. We had like introductions, like it was a WWE, Royal Rumble or something like that. We all got introduced, and man, it made a bunch of high schoolers feel like we were NBA superstars. I'll tell you what, it was cool.
Yeah,
they had the lights turned off with a spotlight while you went out for introductions. That was pretty
smoke
cool.
Machine, and I mean, it was pretty cool.
The good old days, glory days. One final thing, guys. This is right up your alley. Corunna now has an esports team. Think about that. I think it's really cool. You wouldn't think an old guy like me would think so, but I think it's really neat. They have like 24 cubicles. They don't have 24 players yet, I don't think, but they're in a league and they play video games against other schools. They have it set up where it has to be team oriented.
Yep.
It's very neat. I think it's a great addition. Because a lot of these kids, you really want them into extracurriculars, and not everybody's made out to be in the band or in athletics. So this just is just another thing that I think is going to just grow to gigantic proportions.
Kids play video games, and so you might as well make it like a camaraderie team, social type thing as well. I think it's awesome too.
Yeah. If one of the complaints about kids playing video games is they're stuck in their mom's basement, or they're stuck at home all the time, okay, bring them out and let's make it a competition. Let's make it a team thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's Jared, you probably know, Ted, maybe you too. Like there's competitions on ESPN, and there's people that make millions of dollars now. I mean, I think you can even get like college scholarships doing it and stuff. So it's a legitimate thing now.
Yeah, Craig Luff, the band director, is the head of the team, the coach of the team, I guess you would call him. And it's just a neat thing, just another nice thing at our alma mater. So you're going to be hearing more about that. And the beautiful thing about it, you got your upfront investment of the computer terminals and the cubicles, no travel cost. You play it all online.
Yep.
To be honest, Ted, I think we need weekly score updates of this esports team, man. I think we need that more than any other updates you bring.
You're asking a lot from this old guy. I'll tell you that much. I was
He
going to
just told you he was retiring.
Yeah, right. I was going to tell you too. You guys both had police escorts. I only had a police escort out of Higgins Lake area one time for having a fire in the woods. They escorted me right out of there. That's another story for another time.
Yeah.
All right.
Like...
That's our prep spotlight brought to you by Capital Sports Fieldhouse. We'll get into the meat and potatoes of everything going on in the sports world right after this. All right, guys, I just want to start this off real quick. I know last week we had quite a debate about baseball, and I think part of that for me was prisoner of the moment. Jared set me up. He knew he was going to get me lit up on that topic. And now that I've had time to sit back, kind of calmly watch what's going on, I'm not so much against the pitch clock now. Not just 100% like I was last week. I will say this, though, Matt, I know we've talked about it before. They got tweaks they have to make. Can you imagine if Max Scherzer is in a World Series game and all of a sudden he throws a double play ball that ends the World Series and the umpire says, nope, too much time? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen if that kind of scenario.
I mean, there's going to be an uproar, but it's going to be one of those things where if that's the rule, that's the rule. You know, you're going to have to live with it. So that's what I mean. I think I said it last week. I'm sure there will be tweaks.
Yeah,
maybe, there will be some bumps. They'll be like, okay, we got to alter it a little bit. But I think I tweeted it out last week. There was a spring training game. It was the Red Sox and Cardinals, I believe. I know for sure it was the Red Sox. They played a 15-3 game. 17 pitchers were used, 3 hours and 1 minute.
Wow.
A game that was 15-3 with 17 pitchers, all those relief pitchers that you were talking about, Ted.
Yeah.
Last year, that'd be a 4.5 hour game.
Right.
Now, I mean, yeah, it's spring training, but
spring training is a little different.
A little different, but 3 hours.
Yeah.
Chris Sale, I saw in a quick some snippets from him. Chris Sale is making a return, a pitcher for the Red Sox. They interviewed him about the pitch clock, and he said he loves it. He said he thinks it's going to be an adjustment, of course, but it takes out the slow part of the game. I mean, again, yes, there's going to be adjustments, and there's probably going to be some scenarios like that, Ted, where a game might end on a pitch clock, and it's going to be like, this is ridiculous. This is almost kind of stupid, but.
Well, can you imagine that in a World Series game, though? That's my only concern. And
it's the pitcher's fault. You throw the ball again. Is it that hard from when the ball hits your mitt? You have 15 seconds, man, to throw a pitch.
Right.
Yeah. Again, you're acting like they are asking the world of these guys. Throw the ball. It's the game. Throw the ball. And I love how you've had the changed opinion. Was that because you were such a, you were Plato's and you were really thinking it over, or was it because everyone was coming at you calling you an idiot? Which one was it?
Nah, you think I care about that? It's not that. I can guarantee it. I mean, seriously, I have been watching a little bit. Now, I do think they need to make some adjustments on the time. And the biggest problem I see is, like in NFL football, when the clock goes down to 0, they say, well, there could be still a second or so. They need to this needs to be just like in basketball on the backboards when it goes red, and that's it. That's when you got to make the call. You can't have any judgment on, well, it hit 0, but you still got about a second. No way.
Right. Because then it comes across like there was a Lions game this year where they had a play that a delay of game should have been called, but it was that gray period where, the ref can throw the flag or give them an extra second.
Right.
So it's going to have to come down to that. Otherwise, it's too much power for these umps.
Yeah.
That I just, it's a judgment call. If there's going to be a rule, then yes, it needs to be a rule, just like the shot clock in basketball or, the game clock in basketball. But if you tell me that now a Red Sox Yankees game, Tigers too, a Tigers Yankees game, Tigers Red Sox game is going to start averaging 3 hours, I'm going to be more likely to sit down and watch it, or at least have it on in the background, while I'm doing some other stuff, as opposed to 4.5 hours because it's a slugfest or whatever. No, that's not even fun.
And like I said, I'll watch it. They got to tweak it for sure. But the other thing I was trying to get a handle on is there's like a rule they can only throw it to first base twice or something like that. Is that
Yeah.
is that a fact?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I mean, that'll definitely speed the game up. But man, I don't know. That's kind of a drastic
Dude,
rule, I
if
think.
you can't pick a guy off in 2 tries, then
Right.
maybe he doesn't have a big enough lead for you to be worried about it, man.
Right.
Well, the whole
That
thing is
is
you
the
want
number one
to
issue of these. It'll be like a 4-1 game. You got, Tigers' 8th reliever coming in with no pressure at all, and they will sit there and throw it to that first baseman 10 times before they throw a pitch.
Yeah.
If you strike your batter out, whatever happened to, when you're a youth kid, you're playing baseball, and your coach would tell you, just worry about the batter. Guess what? If you get this batter out and you keep getting all these other batters out, you don't have to worry about the base runner.
Yeah.
Okay,
I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet from, I think he was a college manager. He might have been a high school coach. I think he was a college baseball manager. He was saying something about the pitch clock, and this isn't verbatim, but something along the lines of it's going to make it harder for pitchers to process the throws they're supposed to make and being intentional about their throws and stuff like that. And it just made me think, like, kind of like what Jared was saying, just throw the ball.
Mhm.
Like, if you don't know what pitch you have to throw, you need 30 seconds in between pitches, I think that's a bigger issue. Like, you have a catcher that's going to drop signs down. It's also his job to be doing the homework to know what pitches to call against certain batters. If it's a 2-1 count, if it's a full count, whatever, what pitches to drop down. Trust your catcher. A lot of times now the catcher looks over at the pitching coach, and the pitching coach tells him what pitch to throw down. Stop shaking off 27 pitches and just throw the ball. Like, I just think sometimes with baseball, like, there's just so much of the purist part of it, like no bat flips, and it's all these unwritten rules, and throw over to first base 8 times because you're trying to wear down the base runner. It's like, just play the game. Just play the game.
Well, I do fall on the purist side more than the other side, but you guys talked me into there's got to be changes. And I did see the stat that I think the batting averages in baseball was the lowest since 1968. And I do remember back to 1968, I had Bob Gibson, 1.12 ERA, and Denny McClain, 31 wins. So what did they do? They did change. And I think they lowered the mound, and they had a couple other tweaks in 1969 to bring offense back into baseball. And as the old commercial is, chicks dig the long ball. So a lot of runs is more exciting usually for most common fans than a 1-0 pitching gem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring the steroids back.
There you go. That's what saved baseball for a while. Well, that's, again, more baseball talk than we usually have. I guess we're excited for the upcoming season, but
think about that.
I know.
More baseball talk than ever because they made a great rule change.
There we go.
Fair enough.
Speaking of baseball, starting tonight, I mean, we don't have to get too much into it, but are you guys going to watch the World Baseball Classic? Starts tonight, and it goes for
11
the next
o'clock or
couple
something,
weeks.
doesn't it? 11 o'clock tonight. It's a different time zone area.
Yeah, because there's
Taiwan.
there's 4 pools. One's in Taiwan, one's in Japan, and then 2 in Miami and Phoenix.
Oh, cool.
So the U.S. is playing in Phoenix, and then obviously past the pool stages, the winners come together and play. But I think it's a cool event. I think it's strange before the season.
Yeah, right.
Because guys are, I remember Justin Verlander talking about he didn't play because they're so regimented with how they get ready for the regular season. They're not ready in March 7th to start ramping it up for like a legitimate tournament. So I don't know if it'd be better to have it mid-season. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I think it's a really cool event because the one thing, especially the teams from other countries, they take this very seriously. I mean, they want to win. The Dominican, Cuban team, even the Chinese team, the Japanese team, they want to win this thing. So it is cool. It's just a shame that some of the best players don't play because they don't want to get hurt.
Right.
It's a good idea. Baseball is really missing out on having a true like Little League World Series type tournament. You can't have it to that extent where they're playing all these games. Maybe it's just like maybe each team, if you win it all, you play maybe a total of 5 games or 6 games, but the best players would need to play. I mean, I can just picture, the USA going up against, Shohei Ohtani's pitching on the mound, and it's just like basically a Luka Doncic type scenario where he's like one man trying to take down the USA. I'd be here for it. It seems like a huge missed opportunity, to be honest, like a Ryder Cup type. They need something better than the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, and running it, like you said, before the major league season starts, it just seems that wrong timing, either mid-season or right after the World Series,
Yeah.
I think, it could work if they did it. It's every, I'm blanking right now. It's every 2 years, right?
I think every 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So the Olympics are 4.
Mhm.
So if it's every other year, every 2 years, do it in the midseason. It takes place of the All-Star game. Now it's just the World Baseball Classic, and give them 2 weeks off. Like, that could be doable.
Or even if it was even every 4 years and it was a true great like tournament, like a World Cup type thing, even if it was in the Olympics, like just if it got the best players, that's the most important part. Whatever you need to do that. That's what I'm for.
Yep.
Amen. Well, let's move it on to a little basketball talk. We'll talk about March Madness and our Big Ten teams, but the big story, obviously, in the Detroit area was Antoine Davis finishing just 3 points short of the record. And a lot of the talk right now has been, should they be invited to the college basketball invite tournament or whatever? I'd like to hear your guys' comments on this before I comment.
Well, I'm sure, because we know Pistol Pete is your guy.
Yeah.
And that's the record he's going to break. Honestly, this is one of those I'm like just so indifferent on. Like, it's kind of weird if they get invited to that tournament just so he can break the record. That feels a little dirty almost. If they deserved the invite, then go play, break the record. The whole thing that people are arguing about, like, oh, he's played so many more games than Pistol Pete or, whatever. It's like, I don't think that's an issue. That's just what records are made to be broken. And if someone takes more games to break a record, that's just how it goes. It's the same with Mickey Mantle breaking Babe Ruth's single season home run record. There should not be an asterisk by it. Major League Baseball changed the amount of games for the regular season. Mickey Mantle broke the record. That's just
Roger Maris.
That's how Roger Maris. Roger Maris broke the record. So that's just how it is. It's kind of like Pistol Pete, they're saying like he didn't have a 3-point line. So really he should have way more points. Well, that wasn't a rule. That wasn't a rule back then. Now there is a 3-point line. That's just how it goes. Like, if you're going to start making all these, I guess, like asterisks for all these records, where's it going to end? You know what I mean? Like, you could take every record and say like, oh, this one didn't have a 3-point line, so let's put an asterisk, or fouls are called differently now in the NBA, so let's put an asterisk by some of these records, like whatever. So I can see both sides of it, but if he breaks the record, he scored more points than Pistol Pete, is what it is.
Here's where I was at and where I am now. When he was originally doing it in, their conference tournament, and he had the one night where he was 26 away or 25 away, and all eyes were on him, and he goes 7 for 26. Plays not very well. Youngstown State, I loved how they were just like, we're not going to let you get this record, and we're going to beat you in the process. And just the way that all went down, where when the lights were brightest, you literally had to just get 25. It was the team's only job. You shot up 26 shots, and you still couldn't get it. And then a few days later, it comes out, oh, well, there might be another game. And he's going to go play in the CBI where U of D has to pay $30,000 for this. I mean, I don't put an asterisk on it with the 5 years thing. I mean, Pistol Pete, here's a stat. Pistol Pete shot 179 more shots than him over the course, even though Antoine Davis had 2 more seasons. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that. I had no problem with him beating it. Records are going to be broke, especially now with COVID. It was awesome that this guy from U of D. I have a problem when this extra game is now potentially going to be granted. And it's like a layup. He's going to get it. You had your chance. You had the 38 in the, the quarterfinal or whatever, the game before that. You just had to make one more bucket. And the thing that really, like, it didn't even irk me because I get why he did it. But they were losing by like 10 at the end of the game. And he like gets an inbound pass. Youngstown State is like double teaming him. He's flying down the court and like heaves up a shot as if it's like game 7 of the NBA finals and just clanks it to try and tie the record. It just to the point where if they do this CBI, I will not be a fan of him breaking the record. I'm a big fan of him now. if they do this whole CBI thing and he ends up breaking this record, then I put an asterisk on it.
Yeah. And we're in agreement, boys. I am one of the world's biggest Pistol Pete Maravich fans. I mean, he averaged 44 points for his 3-year career, 44 points a game before the 3-point line. But if Davis would have got it legit, even in the 5 years, even in the 60 more games, if he had the record, he had the record. Nobody's going to forget about Pete Maravich.
Right.
Whether it's an asterisk or not an asterisk, he had a phenomenal college basketball career, and really, he's brought back into the spotlight with Davis's run. But 100% agree, it is dirty if he gets the record by just being an invite in at 14 and 19 on the season.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like I said, if they deserved, like say they were NIT eligible, and they made the NIT, that's totally different. But right, like Jared said, to pay to go to this other tournament just so you can score 10 points and break the record,
when you don't deserve it, when it's literally the only reason they're inviting you is so they can get a few extra ratings on TV.
Right.
It's just, I'm a Pistol Pete guy, just like you, Ted. I've read the book Pistol.
Yeah.
One thing that I do that is important to know about Pistol Pete. Yeah, he was a chucker in college and shot it a lot.
Oh yeah.
But when he went to LSU year before he got there, 3-20 record. When he left, 1970 NIT, with the NIT back when the NIT was a big deal,
meant something.
They finished fourth, man. So he was a winner, despite playing maybe selfishly, as you would say.
It's crazy. The stat you brought up, I don't think a lot of people knew or talked about. Yes, 60 more games for Davis, 5 years. But Pistol Pete took almost 200 more shots. It's insane.
He was a gunner.
Especially to think about the pace of the game nowadays. People are just shooting like crazy.
Yeah. Well, he won't be forgotten, that's for sure. And Davis made a nice run at it. And I personally, I don't understand all the hate that was going on behind this, man. It was nasty. Again, back to our original conversation we had here tonight. People are just going nuts, especially on social media, one way or the other. You got the Pistol Pete people and you got the Davis people.
I was gonna say the Maravich family is not happy about this, man.
I know.
So
it almost does it remind you of the Roger Maris home run chase? Like people did not want him breaking Babe Ruth's record.
No.
And it almost seems like it's similar to that on a much smaller scale, obviously, but
that was the original asterisk debate. It really was. I mean, Mantle and Maris were going neck and neck all that season. I think Mantle finished with 54, but he got hurt. And I think he missed like the last 3 weeks of the season or last month. And Maris kept it going. And Roger Maris succumbed to the pressure, man. He was losing his hair because there was so much pressure on him. People, beloved Babe Ruth. And I don't really remember it, Matt, because I was a little bit young. I was like 5 years old, but I remember reading about it after that. And Maris was still playing, and Mantle when I was coming up as my wonder years of baseball. But very similar situation. So good deal, though, for Davis to have a great career and finish number 2.
It's the same thing. Let's talk about records. The records that the three of us hold with the Corona football program, they're going to be broken at some point. Even yours, Ted. Someone is going to break yours because the game has changed or they play more games or, whatever. Offenses have changed. Jared, the offense you played in, much different than even when I did. Like it's just how sports goes. Guys either play more games, the game changes, records get broken. It's really not that big of a deal.
Right. Well, let's segue into Michigan right now. Michigan basketball. The last 2 games they played, very entertaining games until the very end. I mean, they showed that when they put their starting 5 out there, or 5 or 6 guys, they can play big-time basketball, but they just couldn't find a way to close it out in those 2 games. May cost them, maybe not. We'll see. But a couple disappointing losses in overtime.
As I've said in previous podcasts, we need a segment. Colin Cowherd does it, where Colin was right, where Jared was right. I mean, Juwan Howard. What is going on, man? What a season just from hell. And I put it on the coaching. They have talent. Hunter Dickinson. I mean, you look at Zach Edey. Is it really like that ginormous of a difference between him and Zach Edey? They can't win 20 games with a 7-foot guy that has a pulse and knows his way around a basketball court. With Kobe Buffkin, who we know is probably a first rounder, with your own son, Jet Howard. What a just absolute disaster of a season. I mean, 19-15 as of now, 9th seed in the or excuse me, not 19-15, 17-14, 9 seed in the tournament. Quote unquote from Martelli, if you remember when Juwan got hired, quote unquote, he's got a playbook that would rival any NBA coach. When you're watching these end of game situations and the plays they dial up, it's like something you would run on NBA Volume 2 Street. That's what it looks like. It's the type of play designs that probably worked in Ted's day when you were out in the backyard with a stick drawing it up in the dirt, but it doesn't work nowadays. And I mean, just he inherited such a stacked deck at Michigan, and I have just seen a steady, slow decline since he's taken over. And really, and I said this before, what really changed my opinion on him was the whole Greg Gard incident. It was just such a bad look, man. It really was such a bad look for Michigan. Juwan's supposed to be this cool, calm, collected, swaggy type guy, and it doesn't feel that way. I haven't gotten that vibe. It's almost like Jim Harbaugh connects better with this younger generation than he does. It was a home run hire at the time. I wanted Juwan. He was a must hire. I just don't think he's the guy. I know a lot of people are going to point to next year, and I know we have Purdue. I could look dumb. I still think it's like they somehow slap together a season if they somehow make the tournament, even if they beat Purdue. It was not a good year. They're not going to do anything in the tournament. And I know we return a lot of guys next year, but we can't ignore what we've seen this entire season. I mean, that loss to Central Michigan is probably the worst in program history. What the F was that?
Yeah. Yeah, they have a few of those losses this year, and that's probably mostly what's going to keep them out of the tournament. These last two games were big, but Indiana, and Illinois are two pretty good teams. So, to take them to overtime, it shows you can play, kind of like what you said, Jared or Ted. I'm not out on Juwan, but I mean, I think one thing to remember, and it's not an excuse. He's still kind of learning on the job as a head coach. I've said it before a few times. I think he's got to figure out the right guys to get on his roster, and I think a lot of college coaches have had to do that. The game has changed. Yeah, Hunter Dickinson is good. Zach Edey is good, but you don't see very many teams just dominating with like a 7-4 guy. You need a Kobe Buffkin. You need some really good wing players, Cassius Winston. You need really good guard play in college basketball. And then, yeah, if you have a good center, that helps, but you can't just like dump it down and dominate with a center in today's college basketball. So I feel like he's got to figure out the right guys to get it. Also, they had a lot of turnover. I mean, they had, I think 9 of their 14 players were incoming players, either transfers or freshmen on this year's team. So that's a lot of new faces on this team. We've talked about it. Jet Howard's going to be an NBA player. His effort just seems to lack sometimes on defense, and, he can obviously score and shoot really well, but it seems like they were trying for so long to find the right guys to play together, the right lineups, and they're still trying to figure out, they just finally figured out playing Dickinson and Reed, the two big guys. That seems to work pretty well. So I think he's learning on the job. I think it kind of stinks because, a lot of guys kind of cut their teeth at smaller programs and then they kind of move up, when they're ready for the big time job. They've been coaching for a while. Juwan got his first head coaching job at Michigan, taking over for Beeline. Like that's some pretty big shoes to fill. And that's what I mean. It's not making an excuse. He took the job. So, I mean, that's why he had a guy like Martelli on his staff to maybe help, but I'm giving him a couple more years. I'm not saying like, it's nothing, who cares, because there has been a decline, but I'm not saying like the dude can't coach.
Yeah, you got to give him next year. I mean, then we'll see. But, there has been definitely some interesting end of game situations coming out of timeouts. There's no question about that. Maybe he'll learn more. I mean, you would think Martelli would have some input in that, and right. The assistant coaches. But that game against Indiana in overtime, they had the chance, what was Buffkin thinking at the end of the game? I mean, you got to fire that ball up. Yeah. What the hell? I mean, it's still a prayer to win, but that was just a deflating loss at that second, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Because, I mean, there was a couple, he could have got it almost up to the 3-point line and
absolutely
and pulled up for a long three. I think he just
lost
choked.
His mind.
He just crumbled,
Yep.
So I've seen some people break it down, and who knows, but it seems like the players are kind of freelancing away from the plays that they're drawing up.
Mm.
They inbound the ball. The next thing you know, Jets just playing one-on-one, and then the shot clock's running down, and he's just got to fire it up. Is that coaching? Is that practice? What they're doing in practice isn't translating to the game. I don't know. But
it wouldn't shock me, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in these practices. Maybe it's not. It could be totally opposite, but just judging from Jets' effort and, like you said, some of this like iso ball type stuff, I wonder if he's coached on a little bit of a different level than the rest of the team, where he's like kind of the golden boy by Jawan. I don't know. That's totally, there's no fact to that whatsoever. But when you watch him play,
the only reason I would say I wouldn't think so is because I think Jawan knows he's trying to get to the NBA, and Jawan knows what it takes to get to the NBA. I sure would hope he's not coaching Jet differently, because I would hope he's trying to prepare him for the NBA. But, you never know.
Well, guys, you got to have a go-to guy, right? And maybe I'm wrong on this. I tweeted it, but at the end of that Indiana game in overtime, he was nowhere near getting the ball and trying to make something happen. Don't you want your go-to guy? Get him the ball, let him score. You got Dickinson and him. I mean, he just didn't seem to want to come to the ball. I don't know if that was the offense they were running or what, but that was disappointing to me.
Yeah, it was.
And kind of the complete opposite. Michigan State has kind of finished trending up a little bit. So I'll be curious to see. Michigan, they get Rutgers, and then they would play Purdue, like Jared was talking about. So Michigan basically needs both of those games to get into the tournament.
Yep.
Michigan State is already in because of their non-conference play, but they still need they can improve their seeding in the tournament with a couple wins in the Big Ten tournament. So I'll be curious to see what they do, because we've seen some Tom Izzo teams, not make it out of the first weekend, and then some make a Cinderella run a little bit. So I don't know where this team falls for Michigan State. They've got some good players. Walker is playing well. They've got a veteran like Howard and Malik Hall and some of these other guys. But we've also seen them play really bad basketball. So I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose the first game or if they make it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I would say Sweet 16 would be one hell of a season for this group.
Sure
I don't know. I mean, they seem to have a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde type run this entire year. It seems like in the clutch, they've kind of blown games. I mean, we saw it versus Iowa. I don't trust them. I don't trust anyone in the Big Ten. I never do on my bracket. Yep. That's why I do fairly well. I never fall for these teams. Never, ever, ever. Even the teams like Purdue with Ivy and Edie, never will fall for them, man. They never show up in the tournament. So we'll see. I mean, Michigan is the one team that always broke that rule, but they're probably not even going to be in it this year. So
depressing. Well, we'll see. We'll still watch the games. I still have that Thursday and Friday, man. I'm locked in noon till after midnight. It's going to be a blast for sure. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can take us into the next segment here. Before we get to Tedertainment, this will be quick. I just want to pitch something to you guys. It's Lions related. It's draft related. You tell me what you guys think. Anthony Richardson, he's been the talk of the town at the Combine. Everybody's talking about how he's been great in interviews, most impressive QB at the Combine. Coaches have been loving him in these interviews. He had a 40.5 inch vertical, 4.43 40-yard dash, 245 pounds. I mean, we've seen him do the acrobatic flips, running off the field at the end of games, celebrating. You guys remember me boasting about this guy when he burst on the scene against Utah, maybe the best game I've ever seen a college football player play. I want him. I want him for the Lions. I really do. I love what I'm hearing about him. The fact that they are signing off on his character and how he really wants to learn and all that stuff, I can live with betting on a guy like that and being wrong. The tools, we can give him a year behind Goff. I know he had a 6-6 record at Florida. The SEC is the SEC. Florida sucks. He's a developing quarterback. He's like Josh Allen. He's not going to come into college and light it up. You pair him with Ben Johnson. Like I said, a year to learn behind Jared Goff. I really, really think this is the type of move you make if you want to win a Super Bowl, not if you want to win a playoff game. If you want to win a Super Bowl, this is the type of guy you have to go out and get. And I've seen it in mock drafts where some are saying he's going to go 1, some are saying he's going to go 10th, some are saying he's going to go 6th to the Lions. I'm okay, and I know people will go nuts if it happens. I'm okay if the Lions decide we're drafting this guy, and we're going to draft and stash him, and we're going to hope for a year from now, just like Patrick Mahomes, he's going to lead us to the glory land. I'm in on him. I want him.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, the big thing, I wouldn't be against drafting him if it was like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. But right, he's going to probably go in the 1st round. And I just think the Lions are in a position where if they use those first 2 draft picks, they can really build something. They can be a playoff team this year. I don't know if in the 1st round, if they're at the point where they can draft a backup quarterback that's going to sit for a couple years. Now, yeah, in the 3rd, 4th round, sure, definitely pick someone up who can sit behind Goff. But the thing with Richardson, he's blowing everyone away with his athletic stuff, the 40, the vertical, the shuttle. What does that matter when you're playing quarterback in the NFL? You know what matters? Completing the ball. And he's basically a 50% completion percentage quarterback. And at the combine, he was like, everyone's raving about his combine, about the 40 and the vertical. They're not talking about when he was throwing and he couldn't hit a simple out route. The video of him throwing out routes, Jared, looked like worse than what you were probably throwing at Nick and East Field. And I'm not taking a shot at you. Right. I'm just saying, like you said, the character stuff is big. You love to hear that because he wants to learn, he wants to develop. He, especially with an offensive coordinator like Ben Johnson. Yeah, I bet if he really took it on, put the work in, maybe he could develop into a quarterback. I just don't think in the 1st round. Because if they spend, look at Jeff Okudah, what they did when they drafted Okudah, hoping that he was going to be the next Deion Sanders. That has not worked out. And I don't think the Lions are in position to do that. Like I said, 4th, 5th, 3rd round even, sure, draft him. Let's see what happens. 1st round, 2 picks in the 1st round. Man, you can turn this into a playoff team right now.
Yeah, I tend to lean with Matt. If it was a little bit later in the draft, maybe. But if I was going to pick a 1st round quarterback, I'd like every team out there to keep saying how short Bryce Young is. Because if Bryce Young was available, that's my pick. I don't think he will be. But if I was going to go for a quarterback in the 1st round and I'm the Detroit Lions, he's the only guy I'd go for. I wouldn't go for Richardson.
I'm telling you guys, I don't know if it was a vision in my sleep. I don't know where this came to me. It's really, he's all I can think about. He's all I can think about in this combine. And I can't wait to see where he's going to go with the draft. You see it with a guy like Hurts. Everybody talks about this guy's throwing ability. Are we losing the fact that this guy is like a all-time super athlete? Run him 20 times a game. Throw it 20 times a game. Just like what the Eagles do, maybe not to as much throwing as the Eagles do. And just let him learn. And take your chances. Again, I like Goff. He had a career year. I don't think you win a Super Bowl with Goff. He played the best you possibly could last year, and it was good for 9 wins.
Yeah, but they still had other holes. That defense was still a sieve.
The Rams, we saw what happened with the Rams. You flop Stafford, who was middle tier quarterback, and they won a Super Bowl right as soon as he left with 1 year, one and done. I really like him, and I really think we're going to look just like how teams look back on Hurts. Like, oh, how is so obvious? How do we all miss on this guy?
Right.
People aren't going to miss on him, and the team that is the one that decides to pull the trigger, they're not going to regret it. I really think he's something.
All right. I think a big difference with Hurts, he was a winner at Alabama. He won the Heisman Trophy at Oklahoma and won a ton of games at Oklahoma. Anthony Richardson hasn't done anything at Florida. So the whole we should have known about Hurts. Yeah, because he was winning at Alabama. He won the Heisman at Oklahoma. He played under Lincoln Riley and Nick Saban. So yeah, that should have been a no-brainer. Right now, what do you have with Anthony Richardson? Hey, he's fast.
He can jump.
Here's where I'm at with Richardson. And I'm not saying it's a sure thing.
Right.
Maybe at best it's a 50-50
No one's a sure thing,
Yeah, maybe it's a 50-50 chance, but I really do think they need to take a swing like that. We can win a playoff game with this current team currently constructed with a couple of 1st round picks, maybe 2 playoff games, not a Super Bowl team. And I think if you want to win a Super Bowl, this is the type of move you have to make.
What do you do, Jared, if this Dan Campbell coach team and what they've put in place and the karma they got going right now with Jared Goff? You bring a guy like Richardson or even any 1st round quarterback, I hear what you're saying about winning the Super Bowl, and I get it that maybe Goff isn't the guy to win a Super Bowl. Maybe he is, but I get that argument. But what would it do going into camp and going into next season after the surge they had this year? And you got a quarterback like Goff knowing, hey, they drafted a number one quarterback. His mindset's going to be all screwed up, isn't it?
I know it's a risk, and I'm be willing to admit it probably would deter the team for next season.
Right.
Which it sucks because we're building because we really think we're gonna have a great year.
Yeah.
But again, it's the big picture. I don't want to cheer about winning a first round playoff game. I want to have a parade in Detroit. Mm-hmm. If you want to have a parade in Detroit,
Anthony
Richardson's
you need to take
a few swings, man. Billy Bean, man. Okay. You need to take a few swings, and this is a big swing. You're swinging, it's either a home run or you're getting struck out looking. So we'll see. We'll circle that. Maybe they draft him, maybe they don't, but let's keep an eye on what Richardson's career turns out to be.
Solid. All right, we'll do that. All right, I think that's enough in sports. Let's take a real short break and come back with just a little bit of a Tedertainment segment right after this. All right, guys, I don't have a lot because I didn't get a lot of TV time when I was out in D.C., but the Murdaugh trial did get finished, guilty as I thought he would. I did take your advice, Matt, and watch the 3-part series on Netflix. I did get a chance to sneak that in. Pretty much covered everything you wanted to know about that whole case, and it leaves you wanting more because the son Buster, I think he's going to be up on charges here sometime soon himself. But what a weird story, huh?
Weird story, and I'm sure, like was said multiple times in that show, we ended up watching another. CNN did like a 3-part docuseries. It just showed more details, I guess. There's probably more. There's so much more to this that, I mean, they could put this family away forever, right. Generations. And, it's just crazy because it just makes you wonder, like, there's probably other situations like this out there, these small towns, especially maybe in the South, where there's just this family that's been there for generations kind of running things. And it was crazy. I think I texted you guys. So where that trial was going on is a couple hours away.
Right.
I heard on the radio one morning that people were showing up at like 3 a.m. at the courthouse to line up to get in and, watch the trial. It's crazy how those things, I mean, Ted, you're an OJ guy.
Oh yeah.
And how those things just like take on like a life form of itself or something. People get enthralled with it.
It's weird, man. You get your popcorn out and you like watch it. I can't get behind it. One thing I will say I was a big fan of, I thought it was one of the funnier videos I saw all week. OJ Simpson's interpretation of the trial. Ted, you shared that. I mean,
it was classic.
He was I don't remember how you worded it, but basically that he was the master. Like his opinion should matter more than anyone else's, and it should, man. He laid it out. He's got a very funny Twitter account, and I could see why he was so well liked back in the day because he's got something that's kind of charming about him, but he's definitely a psychopath, man.
Didn't he say something like someone asked him what his opinion was of the trial, and he said something like, "Why would people want to know my opinion on it?" It was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he did say that right at the very start of his instant reaction. Yeah, it's why do you think we want to hear your opinion? But
right.
It was classic how he was laying it out, man. It was very astute analysis, I will say. It was a well-made video.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I know, Matt, I haven't had a chance to get into 1923 or Last of Us, but I know you've been probably staying up to date on that, right?
Yep. We're caught up on both of those. Last of Us is still humming along. I know 2 episodes ago, the Twitterverse was very underwhelmed with it. Yeah. It was basically a show showing Ellie's backstory, a lot of her backstory, not everything. It was a lot slower. I enjoyed it, but a lot of people didn't. This next episode really kind of came back with a vengeance. So Last of Us is still going. 1923, took the break for like the holidays, I guess, and it came back with a bang. And, I said it to you guys before we started recording. They've kind of jumped around, I guess, in the timeline. And a lot of the drama for this show is if the Dutton family is going to keep their ranch or all the drama. There's always so much drama going on. If they're finally going to lose the ranch and whatever businessman or whatever government or whatever is going to take it away from them. Well, this is happening in 1923. And we know the current show is still going with them with the ranch. So that kind of ruins the drama for me a little bit. But like I said, it's still cool to see how it all plays out, all the dynamics and the cinematography. We've said it's such a cool show to watch, man, in the mountains of Montana and the ranch and all that. So it's good.
Yeah, I told you guys this right before we started the pod, but I stalled out on Yellowstone right around season 4. Now that I'm thinking about it, what really did me in, it was an episode where John Dutton brings like a tree hugger to his ranch and shows her around. What am I even watching at this point, man? That was where I kind of drew the. I don't know. That's
then he ends up hooking up with her, and
yeah,
of course that's how it ended up turning out. So no, I didn't even get that far. I just she was eating dinner and something dumb. So that happened. But I've heard 1883 is great, so I probably will tune into that. But I think I've kind of been KO'd on the Yellowstone. I made it a good run. I got 4 seasons in, but I don't think I can bring it home.
You did pretty good. Actually, I was going to say if it jumped the shark at all, it might have been after season 3, where it kind of started to slow down that momentum it had. But I 100% agree. 1883 is standalone because it's a 1-season deal and it's really well done. And 1923, man, I'm thinking that might even be the best of all the trilogy. So
it's good.
It's really good.
Yep. It's just a cool story, Yeah, Yellowstone has gotten a little crazy, but it's one of those I'm in on it. I like Kevin Costner a lot too, so
I'll still watch it along with Tulsa King. Love it.
I got to get into that.
All right, I'm back home, boys. I can get back in front of my TV, so I'll have more stuff in the future.
You're like the at the end of Wreck-It Ralph, the video game where they're like attached to the laser beam. Like,
right.
That's how you are with the TV. But it's like if you stay away from it for too long, you run out of power. So they got to bring you back.
You are right. A lot of kids nowadays, a lot of parents nowadays don't want their kids watching TV. Man, I grew up on TV, and I'm not ashamed that I love TV. I absolutely love TV.
That is great.
There. All right, guys. I got a busy week, though, in basketball. I'll tell you about that in a second. But just to tell everybody, this program has been brought to you by Memorial Healthcare's Now Community Wellness Center and Skymint Cannabis. Skymint Cannabis, beautiful new grow processing facility at the former Summit building in Dimondale over in the Lansing area. Over 15 retail locations throughout the state of Michigan. Check out their new Skymint Reserve, an elevated cannabis line featuring exceptional profiles for a more dynamic feeling. You like that, Jared? Dynamic feeling. Next time you go pick up your eggs, you'll be feeling that feeling. If you're over 21, go online at skymint.com. Check out the latest deals. Sign up for the rewards program and go to that Corunna store. Use the coupon code 3.20 for 20% off Skymint products. Also, Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. Guys, I missed it. I got my walking in when I was out east, but I missed the gym, and I finally got back there yesterday and today, and it was great to be there on the Sky Track, using the equipment, the steam room. I can't tell you how much I missed that. That was just awesome to get back in there and just flush out the pores. So it's a great place. The Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center, definitely reasonable to sign up. Probably the premier workout gym area in this area. So check them out. Also check out AZEE Printing Solutions, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Grille Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Don't forget to give us a follow on socials. That's at 3 Point Pod, and give us a follow at our YouTube channel as well. Our Z92.5 Game of the Week doubleheader district semifinal from New Lothrop High School. That'll be Wednesday, March 8th, tomorrow. 5:30, Bath taking on 21-0 Langsberg. That'll be interesting. We'll see if the Wolfpack can keep it rolling. At 7 o'clock, Ovid Elsie against Perry. I was impressed with Perry last night. They've now won 5 in a row, and they pretty much dominated New Lothrop on their home court last night. So, hey, maybe we'll see a decent game there. The Ramblers are hot. But the championship game will be Friday night. You can hear it all on Z925.com worldwide. So, boys, it's been a fun one. It's been good catching up with you back home here, and have a great week. Everybody else out there, peace and love. Be kind. Thanks for listening.